Chapter 39. My Beloved Son. She really is a smart girl. Mrs. Ettman breathed a sigh of relief as she looked at the closed door of her son's room. Kyle had gone to meet Layla one afternoon a few days earlier and had returned home utterly devastated. Seeing her son staying in his room, not talking to anyone, she could easily guess the conversation that had occurred between him and Layla.
Mrs. Ettman, Kyle skipped lunch again today,
the housekeeper reported, coming down from the second floor with a concerned look on her face.
Just let him be. It's natural for someone's appetite to go away when they're going through a tough time.
Mrs. Becker was taken aback by this unexpectedly indifferent response from Mrs. Ettman, who used to get very worried when her son skipped even a single meal. But she knew there was no point in asking about it, since Mrs. Ettman would likely not reveal the reason for her change in attitude, so she just nodded politely and went on her way. For the first time in a while, Mrs. Ettman went out to the garden and tended to the flower bed. The Ettmans' garden was full of exquisite roses brought over from Arvis. Elise von Herhart sent such roses as gifts only to her closest friends, and Mrs. Ettman had received more of them than most. She was the only lady in Carlsbad without an aristocratic title that was friends with the ladies of the House of Herhart, and she was very proud of this. She trusted that if Kyle got married to the low-ranking noble lady that Dowager Herhart had introduced him to at the party, it would significantly improve the Ettman family's social standing. Mrs. Ettman had worked so hard to get that opportunity, and then her husband and son had almost flushed it all away, all because of Layla. What she had done to Layla was very wrong. Linda didn't deny this. Even so, she didn't regret what she had done. For her son's sake, she was willing to do far worse things many times over. She felt that it was also in Layla's best interest to seek a marriage partner who better matched her social standing. Mrs. Ettman entered the drawing room carrying an armful of roses of a harmonious variety of colours. As she was carefully arranging them in a vase, Dr. Ettman arrived home.
"How's Kyle? Still the same?"
he asked.
Yes, he seems to be going through something.
I suspect something's going on between him and Layla.
I think I'll arrange to meet with her,
she casually said, as she placed the vase in the centre of the table.
You?
He asked.
Have you forgotten? Kyle is my son too.
She rose from her seat, smiling.
He's my beloved son, and I love him much more than you.
When Mrs. Ettman arrived, Layla was in a corner of the yard scrubbing a large pot. The high-pressure stream of water from the pump had splashed on her, soaking her apron, sleeves, and the ends of her hair.
"Hello, Mrs. Ettman,"
she said, not seeming particularly flustered.
"Shall we go inside?"
No, there's no need for that.
Mrs. Ettman looked Layla up and down, then shook her head as she held out the leather pouch she had brought. Layla knew what was inside the pouch without having to look. Out of habit, she almost thanked Mrs. Ettman, but she stopped herself and accepted the pouch in silence. Mrs. Ettman frowned as she looked at Layla staring intently back at her.
You look like you have a lot to say.
"Yes,"
Layla replied without hesitation. Mrs. Ettman laughed in response, which caused Layla's heart to start beating faster. But unlike the previous time in the tea room, she had no urge to lower her head.
Yes,
Mrs. Ettman replied.
That's only natural, I understand.
She smiled stiffly.
It seems that you're done talking to Kyle. Is that right?
"I assume you already knew that, or you wouldn't be returning the money."
A tinge of uneasiness appeared on Mrs. Ettman's face in reaction to Layla's strikingly changed attitude.
What did you say to him?
"I didn't tell him the thing you're worried about."
Worried?
"Yes. I assume you're worried that I told him everything that happened that day."
Wow, I had no idea you were such a bold girl.
"I'm sorry if I've offended you. I just wanted to let you know that Kyle doesn't know anything about what happened."
She bowed her head in apology. When she raised it again, she looked Mrs. Ettman straight in the eye.
"I didn't tell Kyle, and I absolutely never will."
Just saying Kyle's name made her heart ache. The memory of that day at the stream and the image of Kyle as she walked away from him were still vivid in her mind. They would probably remain as a painful memory for the rest of her life.
I made that decision for Kyle, and not for anyone else.
For Kyle.
Mrs. Ettman asked derisively. Layla wasn't shaken by her tone.
Yes. I know that he loves his mother a lot. No matter what you are to me, to him you're his beloved mother, and I don't want to spoil that for him.
I have no idea how someone as brash and rude as you has been able to maintain the facade of a nice, innocent girl for so long.
I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Layla bowed her head again. Feeling that she was being mocked, Mrs. Ettman started blushing.
However, I meant it sincerely,
Layla continued.
and I wanted to tell you that you have nothing to worry about.
Well, since you're saying it with such conviction, I guess I'll trust you on that.
Mrs. Ettman squinted her eyes to hide her relief.
And since you're doing this all for Kyle, I also trust that you'll explain to him why you're calling off the wedding in a way that won't cause him as little pain as possible.
Yes, I will. But in exchange,
She said, slowly looking up from the pouch.
I want you to apologize for something.
What? Apologize?
Yes. The things you said about me, whether they were true or false, I can accept them. But I want you to apologize for what you said about Uncle Bill.
She was gripping the pouch so tightly that her knuckles were white, but she stood her ground.
I'm talking about when you said that it was a tragedy for him to take me in and raise me, and that you resent him for that.
Mrs. Ettman sneered, as if she didn't understand what Layla was saying. Layla once again repeated the words Mrs. Ettman had said about Bill, then said,
Please apologize for saying that.
Her soft yet strong voice was carried on the cool evening breeze. Matthias grinned as he leaned against the cottage wall, having just overheard an unexpectedly interesting conversation. He had been walking back towards the mansion after swimming when he had impulsively decided to turn towards the gardener's cottage, hoping to see Layla crying there again. He had encountered something even more entertaining than her tears, so he didn't regret his choice. He was eager to see the expression on Mrs. Ettman's face, but he decided to be patient, knowing that his entrance would bring their wonderful little scene to its conclusion. He was leaning against the wall by Layla's window, which looked out onto the backyard. Gazing at the white pigeon standing on the windowsill, pecking at its feed, he waited for Linda Ettman's response.
I guess what they say is true. You can't hide your roots.
Linda's voice was shaking with anger.
Apologize? If anything, I feel sorry for Mr. Remmer for having to raise a child like you.
Sure enough, thought Matthias. Feeling satisfied at yet another accurate prediction, he petted the docile pigeon. Suddenly he recalled the image of Layla from when he had seen her through the window the other day, soaked in a cold sweat, sobbing miserably. Her body had been shaking, and she had been having trouble breathing. It was a horrid sight. How pathetic, he thought, smiling contemptuously. Turning to the pigeon, he whispered,
She should just say it and get it over with, don't you think?
Having grown bored with his entertainment, he left it behind and walked away from the cottage. If Layla wasn't going to entertain him, he was going to make his own entertainment. The rumour originated from Chef Mona.
Did everyone hear why Layla and Kyle called off their wedding?
Whenever she ran into other employees of the mansion, she angrily recounted the incredible story she had heard.
You know how the money Mr. Remmer saved up for Layla's tuition got stolen? Well, guess who stole it? Mrs. Ettman. The mailman Mr. Berger just told me. He says she sent someone to take the money and bring it to her, also that Layla would withdraw from college and call off her marriage to Kyle.
As she spoke, Mona would occasionally pause for dramatic effect. When she resumed speaking, it was as thrilling as a firecracker, and everyone marvelled with amazement. Mona was a notorious gossip, but she never spread idle rumours. Sure enough, she had proof to back up her claim.
I know, you can't believe it. That's how I felt at first too. But get this. The man that stole the money for Mrs. Ettman, he's been caught by the police. Mr. Beguer saw him in person when he was delivering mail to the police station. Some of the officers clued him in on the story, but just wait until you hear who he is. Trust me, you'll be shocked.
Now that she was getting to the most interesting part of the story, she intentionally lowered her voice.
You all know Mr. Rayner, right? Mrs. Etman's cousin, the businessman. Well, guess what? Mr. Berger says that Mr. Rayner is the thief.
Mr. Rayner? You mean Daniel Rayner?
Yeah, that Mr. Rayner.
Mona replied with even more zeal.
Then, after she stole the money, Mrs. Etman arranged for a meeting with Layla where she said, I stole your money. Do you still dare marry my son? Some gentleman happened to overhear their conversation and reported it to the police, which led to Mr. Rayner getting arrested.
This part of the story had been as exciting as a full-on fireworks display. As Mona's indignant voice rose in volume, her audience's faces grew more shocked, as if they couldn't believe how wicked Mrs. Etman was to act so cruelly towards poor Layla. They started talking amongst themselves.
I knew it. I knew Layla wouldn't have just given up on college and getting married for nothing.
How could the elegant Mrs. Etman do such a cruel thing to that poor girl?
The audience quickly turned into orators, just as impassioned as Chef Mona, and dispersed to continue spreading the truth about the incident. Before the day was half over, word had spread to every corner of Arvis. By late afternoon, when Mona's anger had subsided somewhat, she happened upon Bill Remmer working quietly in the garden. Looks like that thick-headed guy still hasn't heard, she thought. As much as she loved to spread gossip, she didn't relish the task of relaying a story that would break the hearer's heart. But this was Bill Remmer. He was essentially Layla's father. He needed to know about this more than anyone.
Yeah, I have no choice but to tell him.
Having made up her mind, she walked towards the garden.
AudiosKoppo.